I wanted to take a brief minute, and discuss something with regards to the time before the Messiah went to the cross, while he's at the Garden of Gethsemane. And we know to God time is irrelevant. He can go forward and backwards in time. We know that the death of the Messiah covered us all. It went back in time to cover the sin, from Noah all the way back, Adam, the whole way back. It went forward. It's still applicable to us. And there's a point in the Garden of Gethsemane where I see myself, and I'm sure all of us see ourselves. And when I first read it, I thought it as something completely different. So it's just a brief few verses. Let's go over the entire verses when he's in the Garden of Gethsemane. Matthew 26, starting in verse 36, and going to 45. So again, not that many verses. Then Jesus went with his disciples to the place called Gethsemane, and he said to them, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took Peter and the two sons of Zebedee along with him, and he began to be sorrowful and troubled. Then he said to them, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." Going a little further, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." Let's see that. Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. "Couldn't you, men, keep watch with me for 1 hour?" he asked Peter. "Watch and pray that so you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." He went away a second time and prayed, "My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink, may your will be done." When he came back again, he again found them sleeping, because their eyes were heavy. So he left them and went away once more and prayed the third time, saying the same thing. And I think, and I'm going to go to the next verse in just a minute, but I wanted to address one of the points here. So many of us see this and think, oh, he is worried about the death. He is worried about the death. And certainly his death was not an easy one or a pleasant one. This is the creator of the universe. And, the son of the creator of the universe. He has never experienced sin before. What is worse, the sin or the death that he was about ready to go through? When he's praying, he hasn't started the process. When he leaves the garden, he's going to go through the trial the rest of the day or the rest of that night and everything. But he's just about ready to do the biggest action yet. And this is where that stress point comes in. So let's go back to verse 45. Then he returned to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour has come, and the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of the sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer." The hands of the sinners. When I read that prior to coming to faith, I always thought those are the Roman guards. Those are the Pharisees that are going to do their trial. Herod. It wasn't them at all. It was me. I am that sinner. When he says the hands of the sinner, what do we think of? I think of Leviticus 4. For every single those sins in Leviticus 4 is the person placing their hand on that animal. We have one for the anointed priest. Let's go through that. All of this is Leviticus 4. If the anointed priest sins, bring guilt on the people, he must bring to the Lord a young bull without defect as a sin offering for the sin he has committed. He is to present the bull at the entrance of the tent of meeting before the Lord. He is to lay his hand on its head and slaughter it there before the Lord. Community. The elders of the community in verse 15, the elders of the community are to lay their hands on the bull's head before the Lord, and the bull shall be slaughtered before the Lord. I didn't think about that before. Wow. Again, this is before the Lord. If a leader sins, in verse 22, and again, he brings a male goat. So let's start to verse 24. He is to lay his hands on the goat's head and slaughter it at the place where the burnt offering is slaughtered. Before the Lord, it is a sin offering. Oh, this is even worse than I thought before. If a person sins, in verse 25, they are to lay their hand on the head of the sin offering and slaughter it at the place of the burnt offering. When I read this, it was probably about a month ago when I realized that's my hand. I put my hand on the Messiah back then, as he took on my sins. Which means he would have looked at me and seen me at that time. And I just realized in reading this, it's in front of the Creator too. So I put my hand on the Son's head in front of the Creator.